Hello, I'm Dr. Andrea Goeglein, the founder and curator of the Don't Die series of inspirational personal development books. With intent, the Don't Die series was created not to be an audiobook, but to be a book that shared a true story, inspired the reader to reflect on their own life, and used the provided journal pages to process some block in their own life and move closer to their desired life goals and well-being. So the intent of the books was to be read rather quickly, and the focus was to be on you. That intent still holds, but lots has changed since 2011 when the first Don't Die book came out. Usually, I would want to do a piece of content that would be evergreen. Didn't matter when you listened, and great effort would be taken on my part to make sure that you didn't actually know when it was created, because the message was to last for ages. Then 2020 arrived. You can fill in the blank from there. One of the memes I like the best that relates to my business is, so, in retrospect, in 2015, not a single person got the answer right to, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I, for one, know just about nothing that happened since March of 2020 was on my goal sheet. And true to my teachings and learnings, when life changes, all that means is that I need to change. Success and well-being in life is not about holding on to a goal, but how you respond to the shifts in your goals and you keep maintaining your greatest well-being so that you can possibly achieve better success even when you thought everything was a disaster. So in retrospect, I didn't intend the Don't Die series to be an audiobook, but events in 2020 inspired me to do so. I chose Don't Die with Your Song Unsung for some reasons that will become very obvious. The book was the second in the Don't Die series. Creating and writing Unsung was not planned until life showed up, unexpected situations appeared, and a rapid response was needed back in 2011. You will learn more about that in the following sections. This audio version is happening because a young, successful food entrepreneur in my area, who I have known since his teens, asked me if I had one of my books on audio. Back in March of 2020, when everything had been looking like 2020 was going to be the best year ever, this young man had expanded his business of 10 years. He was poised for the greatest success he could ever have for he and his partner. And then everything stopped. And he happened to have a business that when you stop bringing people into my area, you stop having a business. Well, I know he and his partner and their business are going to sustain and recover. That's just who they are, and I've had the opportunity to watch them over these months pivot every moment that they have to. However, I also know that something labeled deaths of despair are on the rise as fast as unprecedented unemployment rates. So here's the thing. If you or anyone you know seems more distant than usual, please remember help is always available through the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That number is 1-800-273-8255. So that, in a nutshell, is why the audio version of Unsung is being done. First, someone asked. Second, I wanted everyone to be reminded that bad times do not last, but good people should, no matter what is going on in their life. Being reminded of the joy that Gary felt as he experienced his life dreams in 2011 is a good reminder for us all. Sustaining our joy in life is not about what good or bad stuff is happening in the moment, but remembering we are loved no matter what happens. Don't forget that. And enjoy listening to this reading of Don't Die with Your Song Unsung. A reading of Don't Die with Your Song Unsung by Gary Russo and Andrea Goeglein. Read by Andrea Goeglein and Richard Goeglein. I opened the Don't Die books with these words. This book is my attempt to dispel the myth that has been perpetrated on the unsuspecting masses for many generations. The myth I refer to is the one that assures you that if you do your homework and you get good grades and you graduate from the right school, you'll land the job of your dreams and create the business with great riches and have happiness, health, and love. You will achieve your happily ever after. The rest of the book was devoted to dispelling that myth and sharing a real story of how happily ever after really happens. I continued this Don't Die series with a true story that is still unfolding as this book goes to press in October 2011. This book will, yet again, dispel the myth of happily ever after and share a story of creating life happiness so real myths, however attractive, simply can't compete with the here and now. As synchronicity would have it, Gary Russo, the construction worker turned Sinatra sensation who tells his story in this book, is my cousin. He shares insights, emails, and photos that capture the trajectory of his remarkable year. His goals are simply to sing, to make people smile, to use singing to make other people smile. Gary's story animates these recognizable and universal personal development adages. Change your awareness and your perspective changes. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. You can make excuses or you can achieve your goals, but you can't do both. You teach what you need to learn. Though commonly cited, these memorable phrases are anything but cliches, for they truly capture the essence of transforming challenge into triumph. These four truisms distill the Don't Die message that each author in the series captures through his or her personal story. As a positive psychology practitioner and organizational psychologist who has counseled executives for over 25 years, hint, hint, it's now 35, I serve as the series curator and as your guide as you translate each story into inspiration for your own life. Behavioral science cannot pinpoint how long it takes for an individual to embrace a life change. Some common markers are 36 months for a major change, 12 months for a life adjustment, 28 days for a new habit. Don't Die books tend to capture true stories that, not surprisingly, traverse 36 months from the beginning to the end and concentrate on 12 months when events through synchronicity coalesce and evolve to the next level. To heighten the synchronicity of your life, read the book, live the spirit, and use the journal pages in the back to create your own story of resilience. Happy reading, happy writing, happy singing. I didn't set out to find myself or improve myself. I set out to make money, so I started reading books and setting goals and visualizing the end game. It was only when I set out to do what I loved, singing for others, with the only pay I thought about being the richness of people's smiles, that I really found what I was looking for. Myself. Gary Russo. This book is the story of a man given up at birth and the story of a man who never gave up. It is the story of love. It is the story about doing what you love even when what you are doing is not your first love. This is a story of love built with synchronicity, forgiveness, miracles, and smiles. Number 1, change your awareness and your perspective changes. Synchronicity. Time moves fast for David Fisher, and he does not waste the time that he has. He's a marathon-running, entrepreneurial 30-something New Yorker. He doesn't spend his time on YouTube. He does not spend his time listening to Frank Sinatra music. He didn't know Gary Russo on August 1st, 2011. A couple of days before, he had walked down the street in his New York City neighborhood. He happened to hear a construction worker singing during his lunch break to a small crowd. He thought he sounded pretty good, really good in fact. He asked the guy if he could come back and tape him. Then, on August 1st, David went back with his video camera to tape the 2nd Avenue Subway Sinatra. He uploaded it as his first post to YouTube in 5 years. On the way back to work, David called his buddy Danny Gold, a reporter for the New York Post. "I just posted a video on YouTube. I've sent you the link. You got to see this guy. He's great. It would be great to do a story." Danny was not convinced. There were plenty of people singing on the streets of New York City every day, he said. "Yeah," agreed David, "but none of them are an employed construction worker devoting their lunch break to singing to make people smile." The friend in Danny was amused at David's uncharacteristic enthusiasm, but the reporter in him couldn't see how he could break away from a murder investigation in Brooklyn to check out a singing construction worker in Manhattan. They hung up. David had given it his best shot, but thought he had failed. Unbeknownst to David, Danny did what friends do. He listened even when he didn't want to. He begrudgingly went to the YouTube and checked out the video. Intrigued, he figured out the location of the job site from the sign for Little Vincent's Pizza in the background of the shot. He left the murder investigation and headed out to find the singer in the hard hat. The interview was complete before David even knew it had been conducted. In the early morning of August 2nd, over 500,000 copies of the New York Post with a large photo of Gary and the headline, "2nd Avenue Serenade," hit newsstands across the city. The story ran on the paper's website too. The YouTube hits started pouring in, and so did the offers. What caused David to return, video camera in hand, to record a guy singing on the street? Up until that point, David and Gary's interaction was like others that have taken place over the initial days of Gary's noontime concerts. People would pass by, some would notice him, and a few would stop momentarily and catch a short video on their phones. A few posted those videos on YouTube. None of the posts generated any following. None changed Gary's life. Until David's on August 1st. His actions set in motion the living definition of synchronicity. Synchronicity is the experience of two or more events that are causally unrelated, occurring together in a meaningful manner. The unrelated event that made the difference in Gary's case was David's decision to connect with his connections and use them on behalf of a person he had never been connected with before. That's why the real synchronicity transpired after David uploaded the video. Synchronicity occurs at the interaction of your awareness, response, perspective, and action. Awareness and response. The slow dance of synchronicity begins the moment you are born. Throughout life, you'll have many partners in this dance. They come in and out on the wings of unrelated events. Yet rarely are you aware that these events could make a difference in your life. You become aware when you slow your mind enough to think about the events as a coincidence taking place right before your eyes. When you choose to respond to these thoughts, they carry power beyond your imagination. This connection may remind you of the law of attraction, a bastardized and morphed popular cultural version of this theory has been floating around for many years. The incomplete version goes something like this. You have thoughts, and those thoughts become things, good or bad. Net, your thinking attracts to you good things if you think good thoughts and bad things if you think bad thoughts. So according to this theory, the mere act of thinking can get you into trouble. Since we have an average of upwards of 50,000 thoughts a day, most of them unconscious, this version of the law of attraction gives people more responsibility for their lives even the most highly functioning among us could possibly handle. Richard Rohr has a more useful interpretation of how you might attract situations into your life. You create your response to all the things that occur. Your response is your reality. Therefore, you create your reality or attract what is in your life by how you respond to all things in your life. Your response can be a mental action, like a decision to see things differently. Since you create that response, you also have the opportunity to alter it. That's how you create your reality. Your thoughts, your response, your reality, your law of attraction. Perspective. The definition of synchronicity says that the unrelated events occur together in a meaningful manner. Notice that the definition doesn't specify if the meaning is good or if the meaning is bad. That's where your perspective comes into play. Take the perspective of the birth of a child. A joyous occasion, right? Or is it one of those myths we rarely want to call out from under the carpet? The idea that all births are joyous occasions is one of those myths that build a don't-die spirit. More times than we wish to admit, babies come into this world wrapped in a blanket of stressors that they had no earthly part in creating. A baby boy named Gary entered the world in such a way in September 1960. He was born to a mother of Irish descent whose life stressors led her to give him up for adoption. He was adopted by a mother of Italian descent whose life stressors led him to the music of Frank Sinatra. She bestowed on him the Italian surname Russo. Enter synchronicity. Being born, being adopted, growing up as the kid in one family, getting a karaoke machine, marrying, having your own kids, starting businesses, being reunited as an adult with your birth family, losing businesses, finding a job, losing your marriage, and becoming a viral singing phenomenon are in themselves unrelated events that occurred together over a 50-year time span. Is Gary a construction worker who sings, or a singer who works in construction? That depends on your perspective. How he saw himself, and therefore how he ignored or welcomed synchronistic events, depended on his perspective. His perspective shifted after he began to think of himself differently. He experienced a series of what are called perspective-changing events. Are you laying tracks or building a railroad? Some stories, like this one, remain so poignant that you have to hear them again and again in inspirational speeches and self-help books. Two railroad employees met again after their first having worked together laying tracks 30 years before. One employee was still laying tracks. The other former trackman was now the railroad's proud CEO. With equal parts envy and defeat, the trackman questioned the CEO. How come we started out together laying railroad tracks, and after all these years, I'm still working outside, fighting nature's elements, working and getting dirty, and you're the CEO? With the humility of a seasoned leader, the CEO replied, you see, 30 years ago, you believed your job was to lay railroad tracks. I, on the other hand, believed I was building a railroad. Same job, different perspective on what they were doing. Perspective. It really does change everything. Action. You never know when one seemingly unrelated event may become the catalyst that sets off a chain of synchronistic events. Though you may not know for sure when something important will happen, you can always be ready to take action. In the summer of 2011, Gary Russo was ready. The steps of being ready to take action and actually taking action connect unrelated events into the powerful chain. You hold all the potential for great synchronistic events to come together to transform your life. You accept the dance partner synchronicity brings you when you take action by stepping into opportunity, even when you don't know in advance the possibility that opportunity may hold. Number 2, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Experience is not what happens to a man. It is what a man does with what happens to him. Aldous Huxley.
Love. Everybody has roots. I have more than most. They run deep and wide. Like everybody, how I grew up and who raised me made me who I am. Like everybody, there are good parts of my past, and there are parts even I don't like so much. The parts I don't like so much cause me to search for ways to be a better man. The internet opens so many windows and doors these days. Without its magic and reach, my audience would still be a handful of Second Avenue neighbors. My songs must have meant something to the people who watched me on YouTube. I've had those internet moments too, when some link or email shows up and gives me something I can relate to. There was once a story in my email that reminded me about how I grew up. It went like this. An Italian mother is giving directions to her grown son, who is coming to visit with his wife. You come into the front door of the apartment. I'm in an apartment 301. There is a big panel on the front door. With your elbow, push the button 301. I will buzz you in. Come inside. The elevator is on the right. Get in. With your elbow, push 3. When you get out, I'm on the left. With your elbow, hit my doorbell. Ma, that sounds easy, but why am I hitting all those buttons with my elbow? What? You were gonna come empty-handed? From an early age, I knew I wanted to make something of myself. It was only when I got older that I realized before that could happen, I had to stop thinking that I was never good enough. I had to stop being afraid I was never doing enough. I had to stop thinking that I would never have enough.
There are so many ways a life can be lived. Stories like Gary's can remind you that you can live life with the spirit that won't be killed no matter what life throws your way or how deep a rut you feel stuck in. The story can inspire you to live your life with the absolute confidence that you will thrive after adversity and that you will complete your life with the sense of triumph expressed in this Navajo chant. When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries, and you rejoice. People just like you can and do have tough experiences, or what experts call perspective-changing events. And let's face it, a lot of life is tough. But after a negative incident, not only can you survive, you can learn to thrive again. Sound like too much of a challenge? It's not. It's entirely possible. The latest positive psychology research has scientifically proven that as tough as life is, people do indeed experience this kind of growth. When you use life's curveballs to create positive energy, you cultivate a don't die spirit that powers you through the moment by moment so that you can live your life to the fullest until the end. A don't die spirit emerges from love. Love of others, love of self, love of life. This love isn't the love of your life love or unconditional love. No, this love is the experience of momentary increases in positive emotions you feel when you invest in the well-being of another or when your response to a situation matches someone else's as though it was in synchronicity. Over time, these moments of love add up into embodied rapture and that sense of things just clicking. To love others, first find the sense of a connection within yourself. In other words, love yourself first. That's when you will learn to love life.
Forgiveness. When I started the Kiewit Company, I knew I was lucky. To have steady work early in my career as an iron worker was great, but to have it with a company like Kiewit was even better. What I had no way of knowing was how much working with and for that company would change my life. Everyone who sees the story on the internet about me singing on my lunch break to help smooth over the angry neighbors of a job site thinks I did the company a big favor. That's not even close to the whole story. Only a few people know the whole story. The only reason I was on that job site at all was because the company once took a big chance and forgave me for walking off a job and vanishing for over 10 months. I just kind of disappeared. I'm not proud of the way I left. They didn't have to take me back. I wasn't given my supervisor title again, but I had a job. From the day they took me back, I always looked for ways to make the company proud. I call it the best worst decision I ever made. Forgiveness is not something you think of when you think of a big construction company, or any company for that matter, but their forgiveness years before set the stage for the story of this unbelievable year.
Did you ever take a class in forgiveness? Probably not, unless you studied theology. Forgiveness is an internal psychological shift people who feel they are wronged make for themselves, by themselves. Do you ever think about companies practicing forgiveness? Sounds like a long shot, doesn't it? Yet forgiveness may well open doors to business success. Kiewit took a calculated business risk to trust that Gary had made the necessary changes within himself so that he could move beyond the reasons he had walked off the job. In forgiving Gary, the company showed that it supports people who learn from mistakes. It demonstrated that it values the very humanness of its workers. Through this one act, the company communicated that it knows that success comes not from short-term gains and blind application of policies, but from continual learning by people who bring not just their heads, but also their hearts to work. But what's most important is not that Kiewit forgave Gary. What's most important is that Gary forgave Gary. When people forgive themselves, they stop beating themselves up over decisions and words they can't take back. They give themselves a second chance. They express love to themselves. They let themselves move into the future with a revigorated, don't die spirit. 3, you can make excuses or you can achieve your goals, but you can't do both. Benjamin Franklin told us, "He that is good for making excuses is seldom good for anything else."
The miracle of Kiewit. I don't know if I'll be working for Kiewit forever. I do know that Kiewit has been my greatest teacher in how to be. Let me explain. I knew Kiewit was different even before they took me back after my little best worst thing vanishing act. I knew it was a great company to work for because it respected you. It offered good benefits, and it didn't just talk about you being an owner, they actually invited you to be an owner. I knew all of that. Then something happened that made me see that all the things I was doing to try to make my life better were exactly the things they'd been teaching me to do at work in order to do my work better. The light went on about 12 years into working for them, when I was on my first big railroad project. The company was pushing for greater efficiency, better turnaround times, and more cooperation. All of us supervisors on the job were brought into a meeting. I can't remember who ran the meeting or where it was, but I remember how it felt when I realized the similarity between my own personal development work and what they were teaching us. They asked us to write down goals. They asked us to look at photos showing what a more efficient operation or success would look like. They asked us to see beyond what we thought we could do. And then they asked us to go to that beyond place. I realized these were the lessons they had been teaching me since the day I started. I just never made the connection that doing those same things at home would help me get better results in all the areas of my life. Sure, I'd been reading self-help books. Sure, I'd been going to seminars. And sure as I'm telling you this, I did not see the connection until that day. You can go from seeking to seeker when you stop bouncing from seminar to seminar and you actually set a plan for change and take the risks you need to take without worrying about failing. There is no explaining it. Something just clicked that day.
There's no explaining it. Something just clicked. Well, actually, there's a lot of ways to explain it. A learning theorist would explain it by describing the tension in the learning process that allows the brain to finally connect disparate learning experiences. A self-help guru would recite the often used maxim, "The teacher will come when the student is ready." A behavioral scientist might explain the it with a discussion of the psychology of achievement. And all of these explanations would be correct. The it no one theory or explanation can adequately explain is the feeling you will experience viscerally in your body when you spontaneously make that connection for yourself. 4, you teach what you need to learn. We are all teachers. The question is not whether we will teach, but what. Anonymous.
Smiles. I like the limelight. I always have. Being in front of people never bothered me, so when the opportunity came up to share the story that I called the miracle of Kiewit, my heart smiled. I would be able to give back the gift I had been given, the gift about setting goals, seeing the bigger picture and the end game, about seeing bigger than you thought you could ever see. I was going to get to teach the guys, my brothers, what I had learned. When I think about how it felt to prepare for that talk, I can remember being anxious, excited, and scared all at once. It reminded me of being a kid on Christmas morning, all that anticipation. What presents will I get? Will I get what I asked for? Will I get more? And of course, some of that fear mixed in, was I really good enough to get any of the things I asked for? I knew I'd been given the gift of learning for myself. Now I was getting to give that gift back, and my heart was smiling. I was smiling.
To teach is to learn twice. Joseph Gerbert. The thing about perspective-changing events is that they usually don't announce themselves as such. Plus, change often takes so much time that you don't recognize the long-ago events that started it. There comes a point when change takes the form of a new learning, a new awareness, a new perspective. This shift happens when you share what you need to learn. Each time you share, you're usually teaching. Each time you teach, you learn something else you needed to know. That is why when you teach, you learn twice. Teaching is a gift you give not only to others, but also to yourself. You give and you receive, you teach and you learn. You see smiles and you smile yourself. When people come into your life for a season, because your turn has come to share, grow, or learn, they bring you an experience of peace or make you laugh. They may teach you something you have never done. They usually give you an unbelievable amount of joy. Believe it, it is real, but only for a season. Anonymous. Reasons and seasons. The seasons are what a symphony ought to be, 4 perfect movements in harmony with each other. Arthur Rubinstein. Poets and popes and psychologists evoke the seasons to make a sense of the world around us. Life changes as seasons change, and with each season we, like the farmer, have a job to do in the cultivation of our don't die spirit. As summer gave way to fall, Gary began to appreciate the seasonal synchronicity of his story. A winter to prepare the seed of change, a spring to nurture the vulnerable shoots of new life, A summer to work each day to nurture the new life. A fall to harvest the fruit of the year's work. Months combine to create a season. Days combine to create a month. For Gary, just 1 month, the 31 days of August, added up to one incredible journey. A summer journey that wouldn't have been possible without a winter and a spring that came before, and would not be complete without a full fall harvest. Winter. In the depth of winter, I finally learned there was in me an invincible summer. Albert Camus.
Cold winter, warm thoughts of change. I don't think I had ever been so cold on a job site. It was the coldest winter the Northeast had seen in over a decade. I was in Massachusetts, away from home, away from my kids. I was grateful to have work. I knew many were not as fortunate. I had a job to go to, even if it was cold and far from home. I had a lot of time to think. I was thinking about Tracy telling me 2 years earlier she was not happy. I was thinking about how hard life had been since we split. I also thought about how much I loved my kids and how lucky I was to be working. Those positive thoughts were all that kept me warm. Maybe the cold, the separation, and the gratitude all mixed together to help me recognize that the time had come to make some changes in my life. The only way I explain what I was feeling is to think about seeing those pictures of the effects of the warming of the North Pole. Huge pieces of ice cracking, until they just break off and form a whole new iceberg. It was time for me to start breaking down and away from some bad habits. Time for me to form new ways to be me. Like so many guys, I spent a lot of my years doing what I needed to do. I guess by the time of that Massachusetts job, I had lived enough of those years. Now I wanted to figure out how to do what I needed to do and what I wanted to do. What I wanted was to start doing all the creative stuff that had been rolling around in my head for way too long. One thing I wanted to start doing was singing in public. Another, I wanted to write. I had ideas. I thought about television shows I wanted to write. I thought about movie scripts I wanted to write. I realized what I wanted to be was more creative in general.
Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Albert Einstein. No matter how cold your proverbial winter, you can plant seeds of change in your life for changing your thoughts and actions. Nothing changes in your life until you change something. If you, like Gary, want to form a new way to be you, to change how or who you are, start thinking of ways to be different, and then act differently too. Without change from within, you'll get the same results even if the world around you shifts. True change from within can translate into goals so powerful that excuses fade in comparison. Spring. If we had no winter, the spring would not be so pleasant. If we did not sometimes taste adversity, prosperity would not be so welcome. Anne Bradstreet.
Out of the mouths of babes. Amber asked me, Dad, can we go whitewater rafting in the Grand Canyon? Just me and you? It'll be fun. Fun or not, I said no. I really hated not being able to say yes. Amber had dreams running through her head. I had my bank balance running through mine. Then another thought ran through my head. I remembered a conversation weeks before with my younger daughter, Kara. She's one of those kids who is an old soul in a young body. She's one of my many life teachers. She had wanted to do something too, and I had said no. The gentle way she looked at me and lowered her voice while she held my eyes in a locked gaze got my attention. Daddy, I provided my family as well as any man can. Given all that had happened in my life in the construction industry, I knew I couldn't say yes. It killed something inside me. I mean it. It felt like a little piece of me was dying just because I couldn't say yes to my girls' dreams. Then it came to me. What I needed to kill was the way I was thinking. Maybe my girls were telling me that I didn't think I had enough. Maybe they were trying to show me how rich I was in all the ways that count, when all I could count was the money in my bank account. Then I made a decision. I told myself, I'm not going to keep thinking this way. I'm not going to live this way. This is not the way I want to think about living. Ideas spring. The goal of singing in public wasn't just some goal I had thought up out of nowhere because I was stuck in a hotel room during a cold winter. I had had a karaoke machine since I was a kid, and I would sing everywhere I could, much to the embarrassment of my wife and kids. Goals have lots of pieces, and there are lots of opportunities to either work toward your goal or pretend you really never set one. When I first started thinking about how to sing more in public, I didn't think at first about singing on my lunch break. Instead, I went through some steps that I would have had to do to make any performance a possibility. I had to get equipment. I had to start putting my music together. I had to think about where or how I could really sing more publicly. Kara calling me cheap actually helped me think that one of the avenues might work. I loved taking her down to Washington Square Park and watching the street performers. It was something we could do together, and it was free. What if I took my equipment down there and tried joining the street party? No, that felt too intimidating. I'm an outgoing guy who likes to have fun, but the people on the streets of New York can be tough critics. I thought about it, but it didn't feel right. I knew I had the right idea. I didn't want to kill it, so I had to keep thinking. And music flows. Losing weight probably had as much to do with me coming up with the idea to sing on the job site as anything else. About the time I started setting goals about being more creative, I also decided I wanted to take better care of myself. To do that, I needed to lose 30 pounds. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, so 30 pounds can make more of a difference on me than on most. Without really realizing how important it was to my future, I had gone from one lunch break of sodas and sandwiches to a grazing schedule of mostly fruits and nuts. My energy was up. My belief in myself was up too. I found I enjoyed using my lunch breaks for reading more than for eating. That's when the idea to sing on my lunch breaks really started to come together for me. I would try to settle in to read on my break, but the noise from the job was too distracting. There is no such thing as a silent construction site, and there is no such thing as being able to sit and read enjoyably in the middle of one. I knew the tenants in the surrounding blocks had been complaining about the noise, and now I understood why. Of course, I also understood that the project was of critical importance to improving the transportation alternatives in that part of the city. So the project had to go on. What could I do to make this better? Better for them? Better for me? That's when I first popped into my head to sing instead of read on my lunch break.
You learn to speak by speaking, to study by studying, to run by running, to work by working, in just the same way you learn to love by loving. Anatole France. Connecting ideas. The following email was one of the many synchronistic events that happened to Gary Russo during the magical days of the summer of 2011. I actually received this email from Gary, which started a process that I had no idea was about to come. From Gary on June 9th, 2011. Subject, glad to connect. Hi, Andrea. It was so good to see you the other day, especially to see Kara and the family having a good time. I really made my heart swell to see you give your time to help my little one get into the scavenger hunt. Time goes so quick. I am very impressed with your site and the work you do as Dr. Success. I love it. I've been on a path of discovery the last few years. It must have been the water in Richmond Hill that put us on the same path of looking for more in life. Laugh out loud. Just downloaded Shifting Sands onto my Nook. Looking forward to following your success. Stay well and help the world get better. Keep in touch. Love to you and your family. Thanks for Cousin Jeannie's number. I'm working 500 feet from her front door. Gary. Spring is nature's way of saying, let's party. Robin Williams. In spring, you wait impatiently for those first shoots of growth to emerge from the still cold soil. It takes a lot of time for that seed underground to prepare its ascent. So it is with ideas. Before they come to life in a way that you can see, that you can touch, that you can germinate inside yourself. A lot of time passes between an idea inspiring you to take action, the decision to take action, and actually taking action or executing the idea. Synchronicity is about connecting unrelated people and events. Synchronicity feeds the seed. For Gary, going to a family party and reconnecting with family members from another time in his life nurtured the seed of his idea. He chose to take action to connect that past to his present, all in service of his future.
Shift happens. Meeting up with my cousin Andrea after all these years kind of jolted me into a higher gear. I felt the shift inside me, but I still couldn't make things happen. We were working long days and most weekends to keep the Second Avenue subway project on target. The girls were out of school for the summer and the rhythm of life in the city was changing. But my life still hadn't changed as much as I wanted it to. I wasn't singing in public. That idea had gotten stuck in my head. Time was passing and I was feeling restless. I started to wonder if too much time would pass before I got the chance to live more of my dreams. I was still on my journey of reading, exploring personal development material, and surfing life success-oriented websites, but I didn't feel like it was all going anywhere. I needed to get my goal out of my head and into the world.
Summer. All summer long, we sang a song. From the song Summer Winds, as performed by Gary Russo on August 1st, 2011, from the inspirational Frank Sinatra in 1966. Have you ever wondered how much your life can change in just 31 days? Gary Russo was trying to change his life. He didn't set out to do it in just 31 days, but all the pieces came together for him during the month of August 2011. He started the month being known by many and loved by a few as Gary Russo, ironworker, Local 40. He ended the month being loved for his singing and known by millions as the Second Avenue Sinatra. Sure, Gary had done his work well before July turned into August. He had laid the groundwork by using events in his life to change his perspective. Being forgiven by Kiewit, connecting a learning at work with his own search for more, making a commitment to himself and losing weight, hearing his daughter's comments about money. All those events came together so that over the 31 days of August, a handful of people, some he had known for years and others he had never met, could usher in synchronicity on the wings of what may otherwise have been unrelated events that may have been meaningless if he hadn't first changed his perspective.
Dan, I think at lunchtime I'm going to start singing. There, I had said it. At our usual happy hour, I had finally mustered up the courage to tell my site boss, Dan, what had been on my mind for a while. Dan tilted his head in that way that said he wasn't sure he had heard right. Dan composed himself and said, "Sing?" I said, "Yeah, I have this little machine and I have some music. I think I just want to sing for the neighbors during lunch." I don't think he thought I was serious, but he just smiled and half smiled and said, "Well, okay." That brief exchange made me take the next step toward a goal I'd formed so long ago. Okay, I never wrote a goal or said, "I want to sing on the streets of New York City during my lunch hour." My goal was to sing. My goal was to make other people smile. My goal was to sing and make other people smile because I knew that would make me smile. I knew Dan had seen me perform a number, maybe once or twice, at some company event. Over the years, I had grabbed any chance to sing when people were around. Even so, I don't think Dan thought I was serious. Dan knew I liked to have a good time. He kind of believed me, but not really. If I'm to be truthful, I kind of believed me, but not really. Then I hesitated. The voice in my head was doing a lot of talking and not much singing. My head was flooded with all the reasons why my idea wouldn't work. How was I going to get the equipment to the site? Where would I put it while I worked? Why did I ever say anything to Dan? Now I was coming to see that making that first announcement was the easy part. The real work was about to begin. I started to get a second dose of courage. I thought back to those cold days on the job site in Massachusetts when I started thinking about the things I still wanted to achieve. It was all about getting the creative stuff out of my head and into the world. I had come up with the idea of singing on the site to help the neighbors and, if truth be told, me deal with the noise. I made the idea real by saying it to Dan. I had no backdoor escape route now. I had to prove to Dan and myself that I would really do it. That's where I found the courage. I was really asking me to believe in me. That's the cool thing about telling other people the ideas you have bouncing around in your head. You think it's about telling them, but you're really just challenging yourself.
Hi, it's Andrea, and I just want to interject a little something as you're listening to this. Remember earlier in the reading, I read to you a quote by Benjamin Franklin. "He that is good for making excuses is seldom good for anything else." Well, this is the part in Gary's story where you can make excuses or you can achieve your goals, but you can't do both. Enjoy the experience.
Day 1, Monday, August 1st, 2011. We worked that last weekend in July. I started experimenting with singing that Friday. This first day had gone okay. There I was on a street in New York in my work clothes, standing there with the karaoke, the hard hat, and the little sign, crooning away. Some people stared as they walked by. Some didn't even notice. A few actually stopped, and I got to see their faces as the words to whatever song I was singing connected to their lives. More people probably walked past that day than actually stopped. But I quickly learned how few smiles it takes to get the encouragement to keep going. People with their fancy phones record their own experience as they walk down the street these days. When I put myself out there, I ended up being part of their experience. Some guy even asked if he could come back and tape me. The noontime concerts, as I began to call them, almost didn't happen at all. I had found the courage to stand on the street and sing. Then I had to see if I could sustain them through all the initial setbacks. On Sunday, when I tried to start my concert, my iPad failed, and I had to scrap my plans for that day. I was quickly learning that my desire to sing and see people smile was going to take as much perseverance as courage and talent. A job site is run on a tight schedule. That's why I knew lunch would always be from 12 to 12:30 and could schedule concerts. On Monday, August the 1st, though, the schedule got mixed up. A delivery truck came late, and we had to get it unloaded before we could break for lunch. We were all working as hard and as fast as possible, but the noon hour arrived, and we weren't done. I started to feel disappointed. I knew my chance to sing that day was slipping away. When we finished about 10 minutes later, I started debating with myself. Should I go do a concert in the 20 minutes I had left? Should I skip it today? Will it really matter? And in a flash, I just heard myself answer, you must do it. As I scrambled to get everything in place, I was feeling better and better. By the time I began to sing Summer Wind, I was in a groove. I felt good, really good. I looked out into the audience and saw that the guy who had stopped by Saturday had actually come back with his video camera. As I ended the song, I smiled. It was another sweltering New York City August afternoon, but through the heat and the sweat, I felt so much gratitude. I paused and greeted everyone with a hello, and as I did, the guy who had come back with his camera started asking me questions. Hey Gary, say your name. Hi, I'm Gary Russo from Queens. With the video still rolling, the guy beckoned me to give more. Where are you working? Obligingly and still smiling, I replied, working here on the 2nd Avenue subway, and we're trying to give back a little bit. You know, lunchtime. Finally satisfied, the guy tossed out, thank you. I fumbled. I could sense something big had just happened, but I had no idea what it was. So I just tossed back the gift. Thank you. It wasn't until later that day when I saw the video on YouTube that I learned how he had wrapped up the interview. This is Fish. This is Gary. 2nd Avenue subway in New York City. Construction. See ya.
The following link is the original YouTube link that was put up by David Fisher on August 2nd, 2011.
Walk with me.
In here on the 2nd Avenue subway, and we're trying to give back a little bit, you know, lunchtime.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Gary.
Hey, thanks a lot.
And this is Fish, and that's Gary, 2nd Avenue subway in New York City. Construction. See ya.
It is hard to imagine today when people get 1 million hits in one day, how remarkable it was that Gary received 1 million hits in 31 days, because at that moment in time, it was extraordinary. I pause at this moment before you see that video just so you remember things are continually changing. What we think is the goal line is never really the goal line. And just being able to appreciate in the moment is the only thing that matters. Enjoy this as much as I continue to 9 years later. Thank you. 50 years of living, 2 minutes and 30 seconds of video. Life as Gary Russo knew it changes in the closing dialogue with an amateur videographer at a major New York City subway construction site.
Good morning, Synchronicity. Day 2, Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2011. When David Fisher wrapped up that video, I had no way of knowing how prophetic his see ya sign-off was. People really would see me after that. I woke up on August 2nd ready to start the day like any other work day. Then I saw something I never dreamed of, conceived of, or wrote a goal about. My picture in the New York Post and an article about my noontime concerts. Sure, the reporter had come the day before and talked to me, but I figured it'd be a little mention somewhere, not a long article with a big picture. Today's noontime concert had a very different feel. There were cameras, there were media people. There was this very nice young lady who approached me and asked if I wanted to be on Good Morning America. Good Morning America? What could I say? But sure I would. I gave her my phone number, and I thought it was all kind of funny. The funny stuff, though, is what happened all afternoon. The Today Show, the early show, all kinds of media calls to the Union Hall trying to find me, media calls to the company trying to find me, and then came the lesson in integrity.
Confidence is what you have before you understand the problem. Woody Allen.
The value of your word. Day 3, Wednesday, August the 3rd, 2011. I've been a lot of things in 50 years. I've owned and run video stores, a deli, a cafe, had a home remodeling business, and I'd been proud iron worker for the last 15 years. What I'd never been was an internet singing sensation. I'd never thought I'd be approached by, let alone fought over, by the biggest morning shows in the world. I did what I always do when something seems right. I said yes. I gave my word to the producer from Good Morning America because she was the first to ask. I was honored, and she came to me in person. So when producers from the other shows started asking why I would go with GMA and not their higher-rated shows, I had no answer other than, I gave my word. The producer of another show didn't seem to understand where I was coming from, but I was quickly coming to understand what instant fame can do to you if you let it. It can teach you to sell out to the highest bidder. It can have you thinking thoughts you don't feel good about thinking, like, if I go back on my word, I bet I could make more money. Having lived through my worst decision a few years earlier, I had learned integrity is the only right answer. Hitting walls and making the right decisions. Day 7, Sunday, August the 7th, 2011. 7 days in, I hit the wall. I had a tough night's sleep. Or should I say I had a tough night because I couldn't sleep. With all that had happened since the appearance on Good Morning America, the clip on World News Tonight, the record promoter coming from England, all the internet coverage, getting ready to do Access Hollywood live in Rockefeller Plaza, I panicked. I was stuck. I kept thinking about all my goals and dreams and why I even cared. I cared because I wanted to create a better life for my kids. Now that all this had happened, even though I never expected it, I wanted to make sure I did the right thing for them, and I didn't want to sell out just for money. Never was I doing this for money. I had to get hold of myself. Monday I would be doing the live show with Billy Bush for Access Hollywood. I was so excited. I know I kept saying I didn't believe all this, but I really didn't believe it all. Then the money thoughts started creeping into my dreams, and I started thinking, should I try to get sponsorships from the manufacturers of the work shirt or boots I wear? Am I missing an opportunity to provide for my family? I didn't want people to think I was doing all this for the money. I wanted to be fair, and I didn't want to appear desperate. I wanted to make the right decisions.
So much of personal development and growth comes down to the decisions you make when you hit a wall. Do you spend your time feeling bad for yourself, or do you invest your time in continuing to build towards your dreams? Learn to manage your expectations. Instead of focusing on what is most likely not going to happen today, use your energy to take action on those things that possibly can happen. When you manage your expectations, you let yourself soak in the joy of what is actually happening around you. One of the challenges of having big dreams is that you can get so hung up on the dream that you don't appreciate all the good stuff that comes to you in the meantime. When you can appreciate what shows up between here and your dreams, you allow synchronicity to connect the pieces of your life into an enjoyable whole. Maintaining your awareness of little victories keeps you going on the way to your big dreams. You want to lose 20 pounds? Celebrate that you lost one of them this week. Want to sing to large crowds of adoring fans? Start singing to a few angry neighbors. I have learned this, at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with success unexpected in common hours. Henry David Thoreau. This is where I will interject again, because earlier I introduced you to the concept. You teach what you need to learn. You've now made it through the first 10 incredible days of August 2011 for Gary. Emails were coming into him like crazy, and what follows is an email from a man named Roger, who is just a sampling of the type of messages that Gary was getting. I will tell you that today in 2020, I still am in contact with the man who wrote this email to Gary, and his heart is still filled with the encouragement. So here's the email that Gary received. From Roger, August 11th, 2011. Subject, Dreams of Singing Standards for a Lifetime. Hello, Gary. I just happened to read an email from my sister that featured your Summer Winds version of your famous Sinatra song. Wow, excellent. I think what happened to me tonight was that I finally had that catalyst moment. I listened to you talk about being 50, following your dreams, and how sometimes people don't see them until later in life. Deep inside, I felt an urge to sing since I was very young. I knew that I could, but a fear that no one else would accept me kept following my dream. Along with that and other factors such as wanting to do what was right in life. I spent my years searching for answers in life. I studied theology for over 20 years. I studied business, economics, and people on my own, still searching for truth. But I also did something else. I studied music. I studied voice. I sang and I sang and I sang. My vocal instructor said that she felt that I had the most potential as a soloist in all of our choir, a 200-person choir. When she said it, I was shocked. I didn't see that in myself. Today, I am 55 years old, and I finally see that what she and many others have been telling me for years. Tonight, your singing and your message inspired me to change toward a threshold I've been moving towards for so many years. Would you care to hear some samples of my singing? Karaoke background is in my method, as it is in yours right now. But perhaps, in time, we will both be in front of a 20-piece swing band. Thank you for your inspiration. You are on your way, brother. Sincerely, Roger, from Seattle, Washington. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. Gandhi. Again, the emails kept coming in. And on day 12, Gary received an email that really fit into the subject of change your awareness and your perspective changes. This email came in on day 12, Friday, August 12th, 2011. It was from someone named Damien to Gary, and the subject line was Universal Music Negotiations. Gary, we have some interest from Universal Music in the UK. I'm speaking with them later. I will let you know how things progress. Also planning to approach other labels shortly. Damien. Email from Gary Russo, Friday, August 12th, 2011. Subject, Universal Music Negotiations. Good morning, all. Thank you for all the hours of hard work that have gone in on my behalf. Just want to thank you so much. Also like to share some things I understand about the crazy business and the way it works around TV. The hard hat and the Sinatra voice have been told. It's a great story and will always be there. What has happened is that people are trying to find me and thank me and making me smile for the first time in a long time. People are sharing their dreams with me. They just want to hug me, and I just want to tell them to follow their hearts. People young and old see hope where they thought it was gone. They want to lose weight, they want to be nicer, they want to sing, paint, write, and smile more. And this is global. This is the real story here that I'm most proud of. I have an 85-year-old bobby sock wearing, wanting to get out at noon and smile again and feel young and alive. A 12-year-old girl who made me a promise to go for her dreams. Me, Gary Russo from Queens. They want me to encourage them. This is powerful. I will do all that I can for you to make all of our dreams come to pass. I'm so fine
and well that it hurts, laugh out loud. This is amazing. Just want to let you all know where I'm at. I hope that you're having as much fun as I am. Love to all, Gary.
Day Old Bread. Day 14, Sunday, August 14th, 2011. How is it possible that I can be feeling like day old bread before I even got to put the dough in the oven? Sure, there was the deluge of activity. I could see the momentum building before me. I could feel the response at every noontime performance, and yet the doubts started creeping in as fast as it clicks on YouTube. He's good, but what he sings has been done before. He's good, but so are a lot of people. It has no legs. He's a fad. We can't see how it would build. They couldn't see how it would build, and I had to keep seeing only what could be built. It wasn't easy, and it didn't feel good, but I wasn't going to let anything stand in the way of what I knew, really knew was possible. So yesterday I decided to call my cousin Andrea to muster up some support and get regrounded. Wouldn't you know it, she wasn't available. I left a message which started with, "Hey cuz, they think I'm day old bread." I finished the message. I was tired. I was feeling beat, so I headed to bed. It was Sunday, August the 14th. It had been less than 20 days since I told Dan I was going to start using my lunch hour to sing. Day 15, Monday, August 15, 2011. Today, the clouds parted in New York, both literally and figuratively, and things began to happen.
When the experience you get. 30-minute lunch break from 12 to 12:30 p.m. Monday. Gary sings. 21 hours and 58 minutes later, an email arrives and he's at work. 5 hours and 17 minutes pass before he can respond to the offer of his dreams. Experience is what you get, and the experience is transformed. On day 16, an email arrives for Gary. It is Tuesday, August 16th, 2011. The email is from Jennifer, a PR person, and it's to Gary and Damien, who had been looking at the record contracts. The subject is Inside Edition. Hi, Gary. Inside Edition has arranged for you to perform at the famed Blue Note Club in New York City. Can you please tell me if you'd be available this Thursday evening to perform and tape the segment? We are waiting for the exact time, but you would need to arrive a little before 7 p.m. Are you able to get off work early and get home, shower, dress, and get over to West 3rd Street? If not, please let me know ASAP so I can work with the producer on an alternative date. Gary immediately responds. Subject, Inside Edition. Oh my God, I will be there with bells on. Anything they need from me, NP, no problem. Gary. The Gift of Being Present, day 22, August 22nd, 2011. An email from Gary Russo to me, Andrea Goeglein. Subject, coming to Vegas. Hi, cuz. I'm coming to Vegas. I just wanted to let you know what's going on. The head of my union asked me to come to a convention. He has a meeting and my name came up. This is such a good thing. They want me to sing and tell my story. I think this positive message has reached a fellow union family. I'm so proud to do this on a national level and would love to share at the local level too. He called yesterday morning, but I couldn't get to the computer until now. We were really crushed on the site yesterday working towards a goal, and we made it. Was one of those days when nothing was going right. We pushed and pushed, and it seemed like the harder we pushed one way, the more we were thrown back in the opposite direction. We joked that we didn't know if we were building a subway or if a train was headed towards us.
The thing really began to work and we made our goal for the day. It was a Kiewit miracle again. Gary. P.S. I'll call you with more details about Vegas. Hope you're around to see me and we'll meet up. 981,000 views of David Fisher's August 1st post on YouTube. An invitation to speak at the North American Iron Workers Impact Labor Management Conference. Why? After generating close to 1 million views on YouTube, after appearing on Good Morning America, after presenting on the topic of goal setting within his company, would Gary Russo be surprised that an invitation to speak at one of his industry's national conventions? The sense of awe and innocence in his reaction revealed that he still didn't believe what had happened over the last few weeks and its potential implication for his life calling. He was, as trite as it sounds, walking on the air of his newfound fame. Yet he also remained truly grounded, connected to the reality and to his brothers at work. What was he really excited about? The goal he and the guys hit that day before on the construction site. When you remain present to the goal at hand, you become ready to receive powerful gifts. The gift of presence to achieve your dreams. 31 days from wandering to wonder. This is another email that Gary received, this time from that 88-year-old bobby sock wearing woman. Her name was Lily, and she'd been showing up every day to his concerts from day one. Email from Lily, date September 1, 2011, to Gary Russo. Subject, thank you. Hi, just a note to let you know how terrific and emotional it was this morning. Am I going to miss you so much? The rose is beautiful. What a nice idea. The Japanese photographer told me that you are the most popular singer in Japan. Can you imagine that? The whole situation is unimaginable dream for you, and you deserve it. Love, Lily. When you maintain continual awareness of where you are and hold on to the vision of where you want to go, you transform your life from wandering to wonder. 30 years of work and $700 in the bank. 30 years of singing to anyone who would listen and no way to turn the passion into a profession. 30 minutes during a lunch break to help transform angry neighbors into smiling supporters. 1 million hits on YouTube. Countless people wondering if they will be next to achieve their dreams. Harvest. For the rest of my life, I will never forget the faces of the people here. Gary Russo, quoted in the Daily News on September 2nd, 2011. The power of smiles. Sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. Tet Net Han. Were people drawn to helping Gary Russo because of Gary's singing or because Gary smiled and he sang and spoke with others? When you smile, people are more willing to help you. You are more willing to help people. You create a positive change in your body and mind, and you create positive change in the world. And science tells us all of that just about a smile.
Brooke didn't choose to come see me. She had been brought in her stroller. She was there for some of the first noontime concerts, but we didn't speak, so I didn't know who she was. I sang, she smiled. We talked with our eyes and through our hearts. Her adult caregiver told me she was staying at the Ronald McDonald House nearby. When I got a request a few days later to sing New York, New York for Brooke, she wasn't there. Her mom had come by to make the request and record the song. I can't tell you how incredible that felt. I didn't see Brooke again until the last official day of my noontime concerts. She gave me a bracelet. I gave her a rose. Her mom gave me a gift I will cherish for the rest of my life when she told me a daily news reporter on September 2, Russo has cheered up Brooks' darkest days. She lights up. She likes to dance to his music. It's an emotional roller coaster every day, but to have something make your day better is just phenomenal. Lily asked me to sing at her 85th birthday party in October. That, to me, is an honor bigger than any of the TV appearances. Lily had been there since the first noontime concert. She was one of the neighbors I had hoped to make happy by playing music so they would forget about all the construction noise. I sang for the Lilies of the neighborhood. The songs I sang were her songs from her era. Lily had accepted me from the start. What's more important is that she has understood and accepted my gesture of goodwill. She was one of the first to want her picture taken with me. She was the first to suggest I could sing someplace other than on the street dining during my lunch break. She had quickly appointed herself my de facto music director. She took me to task, saying, well, you know, why don't you mix it up a bit? How about some new material? You know, you can't keep playing the same song. Before anyone else, before the video and the papers and the shows, she had believed in me enough to want to make me better. And now I would be able to return the favor, to believe in her, celebrating another year in her long life.
To inject a little context into what you've been listening to so far. Gary made it through those magical 31 days of August, and as September rolled around, things just kept building and building, and the emails and the offers just kept growing. This book was actually in process at that point. He had spent the first 15 days of September recording for me the experiences and answering questions. And then the absolute cherry on top of the season came when an email arrived on September 20th, 2011. It was from someone by the name of Corey to Damien, who had been handling contracts for Gary. The subject, Gary Russo as the start line Sinatra. Hey Damien, we'd like to have Gary sing New York, New York at the start of the race on Sunday morning. But we'd also like him to be part of the opening night celebration, a first for this year, in Central Park, and to lead thousands of international runners in a warm-up sing-along of all different kinds of songs. How is he with working the crowd? Damien replied, subject, Gary Russo, start line Sinatra. Wow, I'll sort out the contracts. On the eve of the autumn equinox, when the sun signals the arrival of harvest time, Gary's dream came to fruition in the form of an email offering a chance of greater than anything he had ever imagined, singing at the New York Marathon. This wouldn't just be a huge audience. It would be 45,000 people who were on the threshold of achieving or repeating their own life dreams, with the whole world watching. And the organizers wanted Gary to lead them all, including some of the world's most accomplished athletes, in a sing-along.
The moment I read that email, I really knew that although I couldn't even begin to know the future, I really knew I would never die with my song Unsung. I will live teaching others to sing with me. That makes my heart smile.
Harvesting your goals. Everyone goes through seasons in life. Everyone experiences synchronicity in life. Everyone has perspective-changing events in life. Everyone has life goals. Not everyone takes action to harvest the experiences of the seasons of life in order to enjoy their bounty. To take action means making a choice for change, just as Gary did in the recent winter of his life. Only those who sow seeds of change can hope to grow and reap a harvest. Use the prompts on the pages here to consider your goals, plant your seeds, nurture your dreams, and reap your harvest. What follows are some of the questions I believe you should be asking yourself to help recognize where you are at those points where Gary was in that magical August in 2011. Change your awareness and your perspective changes. What miracles have you experienced in your life? What perspective-changing events have you experienced? What synchronistic events have come into your awareness? Now remember the next point. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Think about these questions. What best-worst decision have you ever made? If experience is what you get when you don't get what you wanted, what do you want? Be clear. And then, of course, you can make excuses or you can achieve your goals, but you cannot do both. What song do you want to sing in your life, but you haven't been doing it? What makes you smile? What makes you want to do more in life? How could your life change in 31 days? That's where you know you teach what you need to learn. What lessons have you been taught that you need to learn again now? Remember, always ask the question, what makes you smile? Who have I helped smile today? There's lots of hints when you answer those questions. Most of you know, before you've listened to this book, that Gary made a decision that ended up not being the best-worst decision, but the worst decision. In August of 2015, just 4 years later, it was actually approximately July 31, oddly enough, Gary vanished, and he was not found until August 31st, and he had taken his own life. That's why it is so important that we recognize and keep alive the moments, because fabulous things can happen in your life, and you can believe that they are the greatest things that have ever happened to you. But if you forget to remember the feeling of how incredible it was when things don't go so great, anyone can make a really bad decision. So again, knowing that I have been recording this with my husband Richard during 2020, when the whole world experienced the most crazy set of changes they never expected, should you or anyone you know be not acting the way you remember them to act, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number again is 1-800-273-8255. Thank you for listening. I'm Andrea Goeglein. Visit servingsuccess.com and you will get more information to help you along the road than you ever expected. Thank you.